Let me start by saying that if you're working part-time while you're in retirement, you're a hero no matter what it is that you do. You are putting in the hours while others have already left the workforce to support yourself, potentially support others, and for that, I commend you. But fun doesn't usually enter the equation when you're talking about a retirement job. These jobs tend to be easy to find, reasonably low engagement, definitely low paying, but they are quite flexible, which is why retirees like this type of work. But what if now that you're retired, you can find a job that doesn't feel like a job, one where you set the pace and one that you actually enjoy what you do? This is that list. Now, I'll tell you up front that many of these jobs require some level of special skills. Nothing Herculean, you can acquire the skills pretty quickly, in most cases anyway, but in order to do something that's fun, you actually need to be good at it first. Some may require you to apply for what I call a revenue license, which is what a city requires you to pay for before you engage in the work, although most of the time revenue licenses don't require you to gain any additional skills. Some may require you to gain some additional skills, and some may just require you to be passionate about the job that you're doing. Stick around to the end because the last three have the potential to be quite high paying, and I might have even snuck in an 11th one that is perfect for a retiree who stays local during the winter months instead of heading to a place like Florida. All right, let's go. Number one, a canasta instructor. Now, the first thing I did was ask my wife, what is canasta? I've heard of bridge, gin rummy, poker, but not canasta. At that point, I felt like I insulted the Dalai Lama, and so I started backpedaling and asked better questions. What's the history of canasta? How many people in the community play canasta? How does a canasta game work? While canasta has been around since 1939, according to Wikipedia, it's only become popular in our community over the last 20 years and really only popular with people that are approaching retirement. So there's a whole vast number of people that are coming up that want to learn it every single year because every single year people are approaching retirement. The instructor charges $200 per person. You need at least 4 people to run a class. This equates to a minimum of $133.33 per hour. Now you say, Jeff, I'm not good at canasta. That's okay. Canasta was just an example because my wife was taking a canasta class. I would imagine you could do the same thing with mahjong, potentially poker, and other card games as well. Mahjong's a tile game, but that's besides the point. Number 2, a personal shopper. Now, if you know your way around high-end retail department stores, boutique shops, and you have an eye for the finer things in life, a personal shopper may be the direction you want to go. They're often employed by department stores or by boutique shops. Sometimes people are independent and they develop their own clientele, but the bottom line is that you need to be passionate and know a lot about the thing or the things that you are shopping for. Personal shoppers bill their clients in different ways. Some have a flat fee, some have an hourly fee, and some just charge a percentage of the overall sales price, which means that you can do very well if you have the right clientele. Number 3, a golf pro. Now let's be honest, this one had to make the list. There are many retirees who are excellent at golf. They've played their entire adult life, and this is what they think about day in and day out. Plus, many of them live in country club communities, so being a golf pro at that country club makes perfect sense. If this is you, you may want to consider becoming a golf pro, and frankly, it's not difficult to do if you're good at the game of golf. You can work at the country club, which I talked about before, but there are also facilities like Golf Tech, which bring in a lot of clients, and you can be part of their staff. A word of advice, though, from someone who's used golf pros on and off for many years. Golf is an experiential game, and so if you're the drill sergeant type, you're less likely to build a clientele than if you're well liked by your clients. How much do golf pros make? Well, it's reasonable to assume that golf pros make at least half, if not more than half, of the fee that's charged, and fees range from $50 all the way up to $150 per hour. Number 4, a live-in dog sitter. Admittedly, I didn't actually think this was a thing until my neighbor told me that they had a live-in dog sitter who came over 20 or 30 times a year, sometimes for 2 or 3 nights, sometimes for a week or 2. They like to travel, but the places that they like to go either didn't take dogs, or if they did, the dog had such high anxiety that when they left the Airbnb, for example, the dog would bark incessantly and they'd come home to a dog that had lost its voice. The family felt terrible. They saw terror in their dog's eyes when they were leaving. Add to that the fact that they were in an unfamiliar place to the dog anyway. It just made it for a really bad situation. Because of the stress level of the dog, this also meant that dropping the dog off at a dog sitter was going to have at least the same, if not a worse effect, because that dog would be around other dogs who are loud and quite stressed out themselves. The solution was to pay someone to come live in their house so the dog had a familiar surrounding while they were away on vacation or long weekends. How much do live-in dog sitters make? Well, that's a difficult question to ask. A lot of it depends on the clientele. They typically tend to be upscale and financially well off. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay for someone to come to their house and watch their dog. Also, there's not a lot of competition for a live-in dog sitter, which means that you can charge significantly more than the kennel rate. But, of course, the kennel rate is rock bottom in most cases. And note that the family will be 10x more happy when they're on vacation, knowing that little Snookums is at home safe in his own bed or her own bed with someone watching over him or her personally. Number 5, a tutor. Did you excel at a particular class, or do you have a particular skill that's monetizable and others would want to learn about it? If so, consider becoming a tutor, because in this hyper-competitive world, the ability for someone to come in and change the game for a student in terms of their grades is of paramount importance. Just a side note, the higher the stakes, the higher you can charge and the more in demand you're going to be. Math and the sciences should do better, all things being equal, compared to someone who's teaching electives. Private tutors range from, say, a low of $40 an hour if you're a college student teaching others, all the way up to $350, $400 an hour if you work for an organization, a center really, that specializes in getting results. Number 6, a museum docent. A museum docent has to be one of the most fun jobs for retirees. A docent runs tours in a museum in areas that the docent has some level of expertise. People are willing to pay for the tour because they don't want to go out and spend hours learning the information themselves. It takes too much work when they can pay some organization, typically the museum, $15 or $20 or $30 for a 1-hour tour. The best part is that you get to talk about something that you love, and because tours run all of the time or nearly all of the time at a museum, the schedules tend to be quite flexible. How much do museum docents earn? Well, you're not doing this one for the money. A full-time docent earns between $42,000 and $45,000 per year, according to salaries.com, and you're talking about part-time work. You take the job because you love the arts, you love talking about the arts, and you love being around the arts. Number 7, floral design. You don't need a degree in floral design per se in order to be good at floral design. A lot of people just have it in them naturally, but you do need to have a bit of a track record if you want to work things like weddings, for example. The experience comes from working at a florist, of course, and florists actually like part-time workers because they're almost always small business owners and don't have the need for someone 8+ hours per day. Still, once you get going, you'll develop a reputation, and if you're inclined to this type of work, you'll start to develop a client base and referrals. Number 8, a niche real estate agent. As one real estate broker told me, it takes years to break into a market. But if you work in a community of homes that are being built or with limited inventory, like the country club community we talked about earlier, this type of job can be a godsend because you can set your own hours and there isn't a lot of inventory that is moving, so you can make a lot of money per sale, but you don't need to necessarily make a lot of sales in any given year. This is particularly true if you live in a country club community or something similar, and the club itself has a list of preferred real estate brokers. You already have a natural advantage. You can tell people that you live there, and it then becomes a virtuous cycle. In many cases, you'll need a license, but that's not always the case. It depends on the community and the state that you work in. Number 9, a travel agent. If you're like me, you like to travel. And if you've traveled extensively throughout your working years, you may have developed an expertise in a particular destination. For example, for me, I've been to Australia well over 100 times, and I can tell anybody just about anything, at least any American, just about anything about Australia. I know the country so well that I could, in fact, become a specialty travel agent. I know what flights to take, how to avoid jet lag, what hotels offer the best discounts, and where to go and where not to go. I know what seasons are good, what seasons are bad. I even know the golf courses in the country. In other words, I have a natural advantage. So if I ever wanted to be a travel agent, I would pick Australia as my specialty. If you want to be a part-time travel agent, that means that you probably enjoy travel and you might have a natural advantage too. Look into your background and determine what that is. Did you take a wonderful trip to Greece? Are you from Greece? Is there a special place that you're an expert? If so, people will pay you for your expertise, and you can scale your work up or down depending on how much time you want to devote to being a specialty travel agent. As far as how travel agents get paid, generally they get paid by the tour company, the hotel, or the airline, but increasingly they're charging a flat fee to design a package for a client. It can be big money if you have specialized experience. Number 10, eBay reseller. Now let's be super clear on this one. This you are doing for the money and for the lifestyle. People don't wake up really excited about being an eBay reseller, although some things excite people for reasons that are more unique to them than to others, so maybe. But basically you find low-cost product in one area and you sell it in another. People typically are eBay resellers or Amazon resellers. An eBay reseller learns how to acquire less expensive product and resell it on eBay or Amazon or a similar platform. And you'll probably need to take a class or two simply because most people on eBay just put stuff up. And if you want to make a real business out of it, you have to be better than a baseline group of people. But for the most part, this is mechanical. Once you understand how to craft the descriptions, find a good product, and make sure that it gets there on time and your ratings start to go up, then it becomes self-fulfilling. The real challenge is being able to source the right product at the right price, and if you're really good at it, you never have to take possession of the product. You can drop ship it. So the skill then becomes inserting yourself into the flows and then scaling after you become good at it. By the way, I know someone who makes an absolute fortune buying product on eBay and then reselling it on Amazon or vice versa, and they never take possession. They use specialized software, which makes it all pretty seamless, and they specialize in about half a dozen products. The biggest challenge they say they have is that they have to make sure that everything works, and that means typically the seller, not the buyer, because it's not the seller's reputation, the seller of the original product, it's their reputation that's on the line. For that reason, they keep a small amount of inventory on hand in case something does go wrong. The fact is, once they develop the relationship with the original seller needs them as much as they need the original seller, so the machine generally works pretty well. How much do they earn? Well, I'm told you can make a fortune with this formula, but at the same time, they probably spend a lot more than a few hours per week thinking about it if they want to scale to that level. And finally, number 11, the bonus. This is a great job if you live in a winter climate between January and April, if you don't go away. And this job is a tax preparer. Now, before you shut off the video, almost anybody, can become a tax preparer. If you've ever filed a tax return and you're willing to take a small class from, say, H&R Block or others, you can probably become a paid tax preparer. The software typically drives the Q&A, not the preparer themselves. If you've ever filed your taxes using TurboTax, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The best part is that you work basically full-time for 25% of the year, but it's also during the worst part of the year, from January 15th through April 15th, more or less. Then as the weather gets better, you stop working and move on to other things, unless you want to work on things like extensions or even company returns, which most part-time tax preparers do not want to do. If you like this video, check out that video, When is a Retiree Considered Wealthy? This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.